Harlequinade. Scene. The stage of a theatre in a Midlands town. The lights are out on the rise of a curtain. They come on gradually to reveal the graceful figure of Arthur Gosport as he enters. He is dressed in doublet and tights. Shouting over his shoulder.
He jests at scars that never felt a wound.
The lights now reveal enough for us to see that he has found himself in an unmistakable, if rather severely functional, 15th century Italian garden, with at one side the balcony of a house, from the window of which is shining a light.
But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she, but not her maid, since she is envious, and her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off.
Juliet, in the person of Edna Selby, appears at the balcony above.
Oh, 'tis my lady, oh, 'tis my love, oh, that she knew she were.
Edna, a melodious sigh, and gives a sad shake of the head.
She speaks, yet she says nothing, and what of that? Her eyes discourses, I will answer it.
He comes forward, then leaps back.
I am too bold, 'tis not to me she speaks, to of the fairest stars in all of heaven, having some business do entreat her eyes, to twinkle their spheres till they return. What if her eyes were there? They were in her head. The brightness of her cheeks would shame those stars as daylight doth a lamp, and eyes in heaven would though their airy region stream so bright that birds would sing and think it were not night.
Edna emits another melodious sigh and rests her cheek thoughtfully upon her hand.
Yeah, very good. See how she leans upon her cheek, upon her hand. Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek.
Ah, me.
She speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel, for thou art as glorious to this night, being overhead my head. It is a winged messenger of heaven unto a white upturned, wondering eyes of mortals that fall back to gaze on him, and where bestrides lazy, pacing clouds that sail upon the bosom of the air.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet.
Shall I hear more, or shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?
In the intense excitement of his position, of his passion, he gives a boyish leap onto a garden stool. Edna's glance momentarily wavers from the upper regions of the theatre, on which her eyes have been sentimentally fixed since the beginning of the scene.
'Tis but thy name that is thy enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What's Montague? Darling, are you going to do that tonight?
What?
That little jump.
Oh, yes, I thought I would. Why, does it bother you?
Oh, no, darling, just so long as I know, that's all.
Oh, sorry, darling, that's all right. Let's go back, yes?
'Tis but my name.
Ah.
No, before that, I want to give Mr. Gosport the cue for his little jump.
What little jump, Miss Selby?
The little jump he does onto that stool.
Enter Johnny.
Mr. Gosport doesn't do a little jump, Miss Selby.
Yes, he does do a little jump. He's just done a little jump.
He's never done a little jump before.
I know he's never done a little jump before, but he's doing a little jump now. He's just put a little jump in.
No, I don't think I'll do the little jump at all, after all.
Yes, you shall, my darling. You shall do the little jump. It looked very charming, very youthful. When Mr. Gosport says, "Shall I speak at this?" he does a little jump onto a stool. Now, what's my line before that?
And now I'll no longer be a Capulet.
Or, if thou wilt not, be but my sworn love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet.
Arthur does his leap again, only this time it is perhaps not quite so boyish as before.
Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?
'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, though not a Montague. What's Montague?
While speaking, she has appeared to be struggling to keep her composure. Now she now loses the battle and laughs outright.
Sorry, darling.
Oh, does it look awfully silly? I won't do it then.
Oh no, you must do it. Come on, let's try again.
No, I won't do it if it's funny as all that. I only thought it might help the boyishness in the line, that's all.
And it does. It looks very boyish. Doesn't it look boyish, Johnny?
Very.
I was only laughing at your suddenly putting in a thing like that after our having done this play so many hundreds of times together and never a little jump in the 15 years until now, just before our first night.
All right. Let's just forget the whole thing. I'll say the line, standing hill as a rock of ages and look just twice as old. Now let's go on.
It's silly to say that, Arthur. If you feel you're too old for the part, you'll only get a complex about it.
I am much too old for the part. I'm not 17.
Well, if it comes to that, darling, then I'm not 13, but I shan't let that worry me tonight. It's all up here. It's not just a question of doing little jumps.
I am not going to do a little jump. That's dead once and for all. Now, for God's sake, let's go on.
Besides, it's silly to think that you don't look young. That wig is very, very becoming. Auntie Maud, are you in the front, my dear?
Dame Maud Gosport appears from the wings. She is an imposing old lady dressed as a nurse.
I've just come from the front, dear. What is it?
How did you think Arthur looked?
Far too old.
Oh, too much light on him?
Far too much.
What about Edna, Auntie Maud? How does she look?
Far too old.
Too much light on her too?
Yes, far too much.
I don't think Auntie Maud sees very well. Do you, Auntie Maud, dear? She's getting so short-sighted, you know, Arthur.
Yes, I do see very well. I had my specs on and I was right at the back. And you both look far too old.
She
Jack?
goes off.
Jack, where's the stage manager?
Jack Wakefield, the stage manager, comes on from the prompt corner. He is a grave-faced young man in the late 20s.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
The lighting for this scene has gone mad. This isn't our plot. This is far too much light. What's gone wrong with it?
I think the trouble is they've crept in numbers 2 and 3 too early. Will, check your plot, please. Number 2 and 3 spots should be down to a quarter instead of full.
Okay.
And you've got your floats way too high. You're burning Mr. Gosport up.
And what about me? I've got an enormous searchlight on me from somewhere out there.
That's the front of house, Miss Selby. It's in the plot.
Well, take it out.
No, you can't. You've got to have some light on the scene. We can't have it played just two voices coming out of pitch darkness, much as we both like to.
Well, I don't see why you should skulk about it in romantic moonlight while I'm on the balcony being burnt to a cinder by Eddystone Lighthouse.
Let me see that plot.
Dame Maud comes on to join Edna on balcony.
As you've stopped, dear, I thought you wouldn't mind if I gave you one of my teeny little hints about the scene. It's the first time I've seen it from the front. You don't mind an old lady's interference, do you, dear?
No, of course not, Auntie Maud. You know how delighted I always am to have your teeny hints.
Jack and Arthur pay no attention to Dame Maud, continuing to rearrange the lighting.
Yeah, take it down, Will. That's it.
Now, when I played Juliet, I used to rest my hand on my cheek like this, using just the very tips of my fingers. Now, as you do it, it looks just like Rodin's Thinker.
Oh, do I?
That's too low. Now bring it up a bit.
Yeah, bring it up, Will.
Well, you know, Auntie Maud, dear, tastes have changed little since you played Juliet with Arthur's father.
I know. They have, dear, and more is the pity.
The theatre's gone through a revolution since 1900.
It was 1940 when I played Juliet, dear, and I remember the date very well because the declaration of war damaged our business terribly.
Well, there's been another war since then, Auntie Maud, and I don't think you quite understand the immense change that has come over the theatre in the last few years. You see, dear, I know it's difficult for you to grasp, but the theatre of today has at last acquired a social conscience and a social purpose. Why else do you think we're opening at this rat hole of a theatre instead of the Opera House, Manchester?
Oh, I didn't know it was social purpose that brought us here. I thought it was SEMA.
SEMA is a social purpose.
Is it, dear? Oh, fancy.
Take it down, that's too high.
Too high, Will.
An old actor, George Chudley, comes onto the stage. He is dressed as a 15th century Italian peasant and carries a flute.
Faith, we may put out our pipes and be gone.
What?
Oh, am I wrong? I heard my cue, so I came on.
Well, kindly go off.
Yes, but still you gave me my cue, you know. You can't say you didn't.
What is your cue?
Well, it's really a pause when everyone stops speaking.
My dear Mr.
Chudley, George Chudley.
My dear Mr. Chudley, if every time there's a pause in the play, you're going to come onto the stage and speak that line, it's going to make the plot rather difficult to follow.
I meant that it's just my cue to come on. My real cue is High Will.
No more by crossing their high will. He's quite right, Mr. Gosport. That is your cue, but your line doesn't come till the next act, and you ought to have been paying much more attention. Now, will you please just get off the stage, as we're rather busy?
Well, that's all very well, but you said it, you know. I heard it quite distinctly. So, of course, I thought you'd cut a bit out, and so I counted 5, and on I came.
Get off the stage, you silly old man!
Yeah, don't you talk to me like that, young chap. I acted with your father.
I don't care if you acted with Garrick's father. Get off the stage!
You better be careful, young fellow. Talking to people like that is not right.
Dame Maud now intervenes. Edna, on her balcony, is sitting down, her back to the commotion, reading a newspaper.
You say you acted with my brother?
That's right. In this play I was too. I played Peter.
Oh, yes, I remember you well. You were just as incompetent then as you are now.
Oh, that's enough from you, you old bag.
There you are. That shows exactly why you never got in the theatre. If you have a line like that, you have to say it. You don't just mouth it and throw it away. You say it right out. It's a glorious word to say. Bag. B-A-G. Bag.
All right, Auntie Maud, all right. Look, my dear chap, just go into the wings. There's a good fellow. Wait for your scene, which doesn't come for hours yet, while we get on with our work.
I certainly won't. I've been insulted and I'm leaving.
Nonsense, you can't leave.
Oh, yes, I can. I know my rights. What's more, I'm not just leaving, I'm retiring. I'm 67 and I'd have been 50 years on the stage come April.
My dear Mr. You really mustn't take on like this just because.
I've never been a good actor, but when I look at some that are, I thank God for it. What's more, I've never liked the life, and I've never needed the money. Why I've gone on all these years mucking about with never more than a line or two to say, sharing dressing rooms with chaps I detest, is more than I can fathom. Well, I'm finished with it all now anyway. Finished with it for good. And you don't know how yappy that makes me feel. Goodbye all.
He goes off. There is a silence after he is gone, broken by Dame Maud.
Oh, he can't even make an exit properly.
Must have a film job.
Oh, all right. One of the supers can get the pipes line. Break for an hour for tea, but don't strike this set. I want to rehearse the farewell scene before the show.
Yes, Mr. Gosport. Okay, break for an hour for tea, everyone. Back at 5:30, please. Curtain up at 7:30.
Then I'll rehearse the duel.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
And can I see those girls for the winter tale?
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
And then if there's time, I can rehearse the jig.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
Oh, Jack. Send someone out for some sandwiches for me and a bottle of Guinness, would you?
Yes, Dame Maud.
I better make it a couple of bottles. It's so good for my back.
Yes, Dame Maud.
Jack goes off.
Goodbye, children. I'm sure from what I've seen, it's all going to be splendid.
She exits. Johnny comes on with sandwiches for Arthur and then goes out.
Sandwich, dear.
No, thank you, darling. I'll have a proper tea for us in our room, my darling.
Thank you, darling.
Don't worry, my precious. That week is a dream, and you can do your little jump if you want to.
No, thank you, darling, Ed. No, I'm not too old for the part, am I?
No, of course not, my angel. Or if you are, then I am.
But you're 3 years younger, aren't you?
What's 3 among so many?
She goes out through her bedroom window. Enter Johnny. 2 young men dressed as halberdiers and trailing spears cross the stage at back, chatting to each other in confidential whispers.
Johnny, draw the tabs and rehearse some of the lighting cues during the break, will you? Miss Fishlock, would you come to my room for a moment? I want to take some notes on the Winter's Tale. Would you come here? 2 of you.
They both obey with alacrity.
Just say, Faith, we must put up our pipes and be gone.
Faith, we must put up our pipes and be gone.
Now you.
Faith! We may put up our pipes and be gone!
Right, you'll do it.
You mean I'm going to have to say a line, Mr. Gosport?
I'll rehearse you in a few minutes. Ah, Miss Fishlock! Would you get in touch with the London office once and inform Mr. Wilmot that the 6 girls he sent up specially for the Winter's Tale are quite out of the question?
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
Oh, Mr. Gosport? Oh, bad luck, Cyril.
Exit Miss Fishlock and Arthur.
I bet it was because you picked up his gloves at the station on Friday.
He disappears. First halberdier looks round the stage cautiously and, finding himself alone, goes down to the footlights.
Mum! Mum!
Jack appears, unseen by the first halberdier.
I've got a part. It's only a line, but it's awfully important. Yes, isn't it wonderful?
Who are you talking to?
Oh, Mr. Wakefield, I didn't see you. It's only me mother. She's up there.
Well, then I'm afraid you must ask her to go. You know the rule about strangers in front at a rehearsal.
Oh, but can't she stay and hear me speak me line?
No, I'm afraid not. She'll have to come back at 7:30 when we start.
But she has to get back to Birmingham tonight. She only came for the day.
I'm extremely sorry, but the rules are rules, and Mr. and Mrs. Gospel are very strict about this particular one. She shouldn't be here at all.
He turns away as a man in the costume of Tybalt, Frederick Ingram, comes onto the stage with a cup of tea and a sausage roll.
What the hell does he want me for?
The duel.
Oh, my God, not again.
The first halberdier has meanwhile been gesticulating across the footlights to his mother, making uncomplimentary and furtive gestures towards Jack. When he has conveyed his meaning, he goes off.
I'm slipping across to the Feathers for a quick one. Do you think I've got time?
Yes, Mr. Ingram. I'll warn you.
Ingram goes off. The assistant stage manager, Johnny, puts his head on.
Here, there's a babe in a pram in the wings. Is that a prop in the play?
Not unless they've considerably rewritten it. Or is it alive?
Oh, I don't know. I'll just see.
His head momentarily disappears. We hear faintly a baby's gurgle. Johnny's head reappears.
Yes! It's alive! What shall I do with it?
I suppose you better leave it there. Presumably it belongs to someone. My God. What with mums in front and babies in their wings, it's not so much a dress rehearsal as old home week.
A nondescript, rather shabbily dressed girl of about 20, Muriel, accompanied by a soldier, Tom, about 10, and are staring about them. Johnny's head has meanwhile disappeared.
Yes? What do you want?
Could I speak to Dad, please?
And who may your dad be?
He's an actor.
Well, then I'm afraid you've come to the wrong theatre. Try the Palace of Varieties across the street.
Mr. Burton, the theatre manager, has come on. Well, good evening, Mr. Wakefield.
Ah, good evening, Miss Burton.
I hope you find our theatre to your satisfaction.
Well, how are your bookings? How are our bookings, rather?
Not bad. Not half bad, considering what the snow is. Of course, we've never had these two up here before, you know, but it's a big help, that fella Fred Ingram, being in that picture at the Super.
Look, I'm sure it is at this theatre.
No, my dear. They've got a sort of circus here this week. The Palace is what you want. Through the door there, up the stairs and into the street.
He moves away again. Muriel and Tom go off slowly. Funny for them to choose to open up here, I must say.
Social purpose, Mrs. Burton.
Social purpose? Now, what the blazes is that when it's at home?
Well, as far as I can see, it means playing Shakespeare to audiences who'd rather go to the films, while audiences who'd rather go to Shakespeare are driven to the films because they haven't got Shakespeare to go to. It's all got something to do with this new Britain, and apparently, well, it's an absolutely splendid idea. Here's Mr.
Now, in a dressing gown.
He can tell you all about it. This is Miss Burton, sir, the theatre manager.
Oh, how do you do? My wife and I are simply thrilled to be opening in your beautiful theatre in this delightful town.
Thank you, Mr. Gosport, and I can assure you it's an honour to have for us all to have you both up here.
Thank you, and as a matter of fact, you've always been very kind to us here in Sheffield.
But it's next week you're playing Sheffield, Mr. Gosport.
No, what's this town then?
Brackley.
Oh yes, of course. They added a week, didn't they? How idiotic of them.
That's all right, Mr. Gosport. Great men are always a bit absent-minded.
Brackley, of course it is. Oh, Brackley. Good Lord.
What's the matter?
I was just remembering something. Brackley, good heavens.
Is there anything wrong, Mr. Gosport?
Arthur is lost in a reverie. Burton looks at Jack, a trifle bewildered. Jack touches his forehead. Burton nods.
Tell me, Mr. Is there a square place in your town with a perfectly repulsive building in glazed brick with a ridiculous dome on top?
The Civic Centre?
Yes. And then dead opposite, is there an enormous white concrete and glass object that looks like a public lavatory?
Too hurt even to protest. The Civic Library, Mr. Gosport.
Oh, do you know this town then, Mr. Gosport?
Yes, only too well.
Jack manages to get in a nudge.
Only too well. I was here as a boy in repertory.
When exactly were you here, Mr. Gosport? And could you pin it to a definite date? I ought to ring up the Argus about this.
Well, let me see now. Yes, I can tell you it was the year Gladys Cooper opened The Sign of the Door.
I'm afraid I don't remember that, Mr. Gosport. Do you?
No. Suppose you couldn't remember anything else that happened that year? A war or something like that?
No, I don't think there was a war. Oh, wait a minute. I do remember something that happened that year. There was some sort of commotion.
Commotion? An earthquake?
No, something to do with trains. They didn't run, and the newspapers too. There weren't any notices, and then I was made to drive a tram.
1926, the general strike.
Ah, thank you. That's right. That's what it was called, the general strike.
1926.
Excuse me, I must get a cup of tea before I look at the 6 girls.
He goes off. Bit scatterbrained, isn't he?
I doubt if you can scatter a void.
I thought he was supposed to be an intellectual sort of chap.
He's an actor, Mrs. Burton.
Now, perhaps you wouldn't mind giving me a bit more dope on the Gosports for the Argus.
All right, but very quickly. I've got hundreds of things to do.
How long have they been married?
15 years.
Any children?
1, little Basil.
Oh. And how old is little Basil?
He's 13.
Up here?
No, it's school.
Going to be an actor too?
Judging by his behavior, yes. Besides, he's a Gosport.
I see. Now, how would you describe the Gosports? Would we offend anyone if we called them the most famous married couple in the theatre?
Oh, you wouldn't offend the Gosports, Mrs. Burton, which is the main thing. Besides, it's reasonably true.
Always act together, do they?
Oh, yes.
Always as husband and wife?
No, usually as lover and mistress. The audience prefers that. It gives them such a cozy feeling to know they're really married after all.
Now, about this tour. How long is it?
It's 16 weeks out, then London.
Are they going to London then?
Oh, only for 4 weeks. If you play in the West End for longer than that, you become a commercial. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Have you said your line?
I see. After that, what?
Belgrade, Bucharest, Warsaw, Riga, and Moscow.
Oh, what about the Iron Curtain?
Well, the Gosports could make any curtain rise.
What plays are they taking? Arthur, tea in hand, wanders on and begins fussing mildly in the background, removing a pot of artificial flowers from one place on the stage and putting it in another, then changing his mind and putting it back again.
Romeo, The Winter's Tale, Macbeth, and a modern play in a verse called Follow the Leviathan to My Father's Grave.
What's that about?
Oh, well, here's Mr. Gosport. He'll tell you.
Well, what's the new play about, Mr. Gosport?
Death. My wife's got the best part in it. I only play the pencil sharpener in the last act.
He replaces the pot once more and wanders off. Well, perhaps he'll tell me more about it in the tell more to the Argos critic.
Well, I doubt it.
Arthur reappears.
There's a baby here in the wings. It looks exactly like someone I know. Who is it?
I've no idea, I'm afraid.
It's very careless of people leaving babies in the wings. There might be a very nasty accident. Somebody might easily trip over it and ruin their exit. See that it's removed before rehearsal.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
And in the future, if people bring babies to the theatre, see that they're kept in the proper place.
Yes, Mr. Gosport. Where is that?
I don't know.
He goes off again.
Well, is there any more help I can give you, Mrs. Burton?
No, thanks. I think that's all. It only remains for me to wish you a very successful opening, which I'm sure you'll have.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
They shake hands. Muriel and Tom appear suddenly on Juliet's balcony.
Oh, Tom, look where we've got ourselves to.
Madam, will you and your friend kindly leave this theatre?
No, I won't. I've told you I want to see my dad.
And I've told you your dad isn't here.
Oh, yes, he is. He's not at the palace, like you said. He's here. I've seen his names on the posters.
Well, you can't see him now anyway. Anyway, who is your dad?
Gospert's the name.
Gosport?
Yes, Arthur Gospert. He's an actor.
Oh, I see.
He signs urgently to the prompt corner. Johnny
So
appears.
you're the daughter of Arthur Gosport, are you?
Yes, that's right. And this is my husband.
Howdy.
Well, I'm most delighted to meet you both. I simply can't apologise enough for having been so very rude. Oh, Johnny, this lady is Mr. Gosport's daughter, and this is her husband. Would you be so kind as to look after them both? Just show them around, would you?
He makes a quick, violent gesture of his thumb, unseen by the two on the balcony. Johnny nods.
Okay, Mr. Wakefield.
He goes off.
Now, Miss Gosport.
Miss Palmer.
Oh, I do beg your pardon, Mrs. Palmer, but now if you and your husband will be so very kind as to step through the window there and down the steps, you'll find such a nice gentleman who's going to make such very good care of you both.
Oh, Thanks. You're a real pal. Come on, Tom.
She disappears from view. Tom waves cheerfully to Jack and follows her. Lord love us. Oh, what will they think up next?
Amazing, isn't it?
It's a funny world, ours, isn't it?
Side-splitting.
The first halberdier comes on, mouthing and muttering anxiously to himself. Burton exits. Jack shakes his head wearily, then looks at his watch. Johnny reappears.
All right.
I'll lock them in one of our downstairs room. I better not shove them out, as the doorman's off and they might get in again.
Quite right. Which room will you put them in?
I'll put them in number 3. There are 6 other girls there waiting for someone.
I wonder whose daughters they are. Okay, Johnny, thanks.
He goes off as the first halberdier approaches Jack.
Mr. Wakefield, do you think it ought to be Faith, we may put up our pipes and be gone, or Faith, we may put up our pipes and be gone?
What about Faith, we may put our pipes and be gone?
Well, that doesn't sound quite right to me.
It sounds awfully right to me. What's happened to your mum?
Oh, well, she's gone.
Oh, that's very lucky for her.
A very good-looking, smartly dressed girl, Joyce Langland, appears on the stage and stands, evidently a little awed by her surroundings. The first halberdier wanders off, still muttering.
Jack!
Joyce! Why on earth didn't you let me know you were coming up?
I didn't have time.
What do you mean you didn't have time?
I've got some news for you, which I had to tell you myself, so I just jumped on the first train.
Oh, darling, how wonderful.
Oh, you've guessed.
Well, your father's changed his mind. Darling, you're a magician. How did you work it?
You worked it. He was terribly impressed with your letter.
So he should be.
Helena told him about your war record.
Oh, that was a mistake, wasn't it?
You got the DFC.
Only because the CEO liked the pantomime I produced for the chaps. I say, darling, are we rich?
Well, we'll pay super tax anyway.
Okay, darling, how marvellous. I don't have to work anymore.
Well, not in the theatre anyway.
Oh, but I do have to work?
He's going to take you to the firm.
Oh, I thought there was a catch.
Darling, it's not a catch. Jack, it's not that you don't want to give up the theatre, is it?
Oh, good Lord, no. I'd give up the theatre tomorrow if I could.
Well, now you can.
There is a pause, broken by the first halberdier, who has wandered onto the stage a few seconds before.
Faith, we may put up our pipes and be gone.
Look, old chap, do you mind awfully going and doing that somewhere else? I've got things on my mind.
Sorry, Mr. Wakefield. This is my great chance, you know, and I don't want to muck it up. That's it, I know. Faith, we may put up our pipes and be gone.
He goes off.
Darling, I think I'd better finish the tour.
The whole tour? 46 weeks?
No. Only England. After London, they'll have to get someone else, but I can't let them down without fair warning.
No, I see that. There's only one thing I'm frightened of, though, Jack. Can I tell you what it is?
That I haven't the guts to leave them at all?
It's not only the Gospels that I'm worrying about. It's the theatre.
Yes, but the Gosports are the theatre. There is no theatre apart from the Gosports.
Darling, don't exaggerate.
I'm not. I mean, the Gospels are eternal. They're the theatre at its worst and its best. They're the true theatre because they're entirely self-centred, entirely exhibitionist, entirely dotty, and because they make no compromise whatever with the outside world.
Then what about this idea of there's a theatre with a social purpose?
Theatre with a social purpose, indeed. It's a contradiction in terms. Good citizenship and good theatre don't go together. They never have and they never will. All through the ages, from Burbage downwards, the theatre, the true theatre, has consisted of a blind, antisocial, self-sufficient, certifiable Gospels. The point is that if I have the courage to leave the Gospels, I have the courage to leave the theatre.
And have you?
Yes. I hate the theatre. I shall leave the theatre without the faintest regret, and for a week afterwards I shall barely draw a sober breath in celebration.
And I'll be at your side in that. Good. Will you go and tell them now, then?
Now?
Yes. There's a break on, isn't there?
Yes. Yes, there is. Is this a test of my courage?
That's it.
All right. I might as well get on with it. Besides, I'm just giving them plenty of notice, aren't I?
Yes. Plenty.
I'm not the least afraid of them, you know. That's what you think.
Edna, in dressing gown and chewing a sandwich, wanders on from the wings.
I'm a bit worried about the balcony, Jack. It seems very wobbly to me.
Oh, it's been being seen to, Miss Selby. Miss Selby.
Yes?
Could I introduce Miss Langland?
Oh, yes. How do you do? You're a serving wench, aren't you?
No. She's not in the company at all. As a matter of fact, Miss Selby, she's the girl I'm going to marry.
Marry! Oh, my dear, how wonderful. How simply wonderful. Oh, Jack, darling, I am so glad. And you too, my dear. Pretty you are, so young, and what an enchanting little frog. Oh, I'm so happy for you both. I feel I want to cry and ruin my makeup. Arthur must be your best man, and I'll be godmother to your first. When's the wedding to be?
After the provincial tour, when we come to London.
Oh, good. It would have been far too long a time to wait for him, wouldn't it? 46 weeks.
Yes. I did feel that, I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid, dear. You're quite right to be impatient. I was when I married Arthur. Dear little child, I'm so happy for you. So you'll be coming to Europe with us, will you?
No, Miss Selby, I won't.
No? Well, perhaps you're wise. It's going to be rather uncomfortable for us all, I expect. Still, won't you miss him being gone all that time?
Well, the fact is, Miss Selby, you see, this is the point. I'm not sure that I'm going to Europe myself.
Not going to Europe? Oh, I know what you mean. Some nasty creature must have sneaked to you about what Arthur was saying the other day about Ronnie Williams coming to stage manage for us. But you mustn't worry, my darling. It's only because Ronnie Williams stage managed for us for so long, practically before you were born, my darling. And Arthur heard he was out of a job, and well, you know how tactless he is, the poor old thing. But he really didn't mean it. I know he didn't.
Look, Miss Selby, it's got nothing to do with Ronnie Williams.
You're hurt, my precious. I'm so sorry. But I can promise you most faithfully that there was never any question of us not taking you to Europe. We all love you and admire you far too much.
Well, thank you very much, Miss Selby, but...
Now, I don't want to hear anything more about it. Just forget the whole thing and I pretend it never happened. You're coming to Europe with us, I promise you. Goodbye, you dear things. Oh, we look so pretty, the two of you, just standing there together.
She goes off.
Look, darling, perhaps a dress rehearsal isn't the best moment to break it to them. What about tomorrow or after the first night?
Or after Sheffield, or London, or after the European tour. No, Jack, darling, something tells me that if you don't do it now, during this break, you never will.
I could write them a letter.
I thought you said you weren't afraid of them.
Arthur wanders on and makes straight for the flower pot, removing it in the background to another spot.
I know. I'll tell him. He's really much easier to deal with than she is.
Well, now's your chance then.
Jack starts violently, then braces himself and takes Joyce by the hand up to Arthur.
Oh, Mr. Gosport!
Yes?
Oh, could I introduce Miss Langland?
Oh, how do you do? Have you read The Winter's Tale?
No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Well, it's not a difficult part. It's about a girl who's abandoned by her father when she's a baby, and then many years later they meet.
Oh, Miss Langland isn't here about The Winter's Tale, Mr. Gosport. She's my fiancée. We're getting married after the provincial tour, and I'm not coming with you to...
Yes, I see, my dear fellow. Now, what's that about the girls of Winter's Tale? Are they here?
Yes, I think so. Did you hear what I said, Mr. Gospels?
Yes, of course. I think I'd better see those girls straight away. Have them in one by one, would you?
Yes, Mr. Gospel. Johnny, are the girls here for Winter's Tale?
Yes, 7 of them.
Okay, that's right. Mr. Gospel will see them now separately.
Okay.
How do you like it here, Jack?
Oh, much better.
What do you think, Miss...
I think it's charming here.
No, I don't like it there very much.
Mr. Gospel, I don't think you quite grasped what I said to you just now.
Of course I did, my dear fellow. You said you thought the pot looked better there, but I don't agree.
No. Before that, I told you I was getting married.
Getting married? I'm absolutely delighted, my dear chap. Who to? Edna! I thought of an entirely new way of dying.
Have you, darling? How exciting.
Bring on the tomb, someone.
Yes, Mr. Gospel. Johnny, give me a hand with the tomb.
Yes, Mr. Wakefield.
He and Jack bring forward the tomb, and Johnny goes off.
Now, young lady, perhaps you would be kind enough to take your position here. Thank you. And the beauty of it is in its simplicity. Now, I must get you something to lie on.
He takes a Macintosh from Joyce and spreads it over the tomb. Edna lies on it.
Thank you.
Look, Mr. Gospel, there is something I've got to tell you before you die.
Well, if she can't do it in the quick change in time, then she'll have to wear the black velvet all through.
But Mr. Gospel...
That's all there is to it. I don't want to hear another word about it. Now, come, bitter conduct. Come, unsavory guide. Thou desperate pilot, now at once run on. The dashing rocks, thy seasick weary bark, here's to my love. Oh, true apothecary, thy drugs are quick. Ah, thus, with a kiss, I die.
And a very spectacular death it is. Joyce, despite her prejudice, is thrilled.
That was wonderful!
Oh, did you like it, Miss... I'm so glad you didn't think it was too much.
Oh, no, not a bit. I thought it was thrilling.
Jack, darling, don't you think your little friend must be feeling awfully cold standing on this draughty stage in that thin little frock? Wouldn't she be much better off in a nice warm dressing room?
Yes, Miss Selby. Darling, run along to the room, would you? It's number 14 on the second floor. I'll join you there when I can.
All right. Now, don't let me down, Jack, before the break is up.
Such a sweet little face.
Before the break is up, I promise.
Joyce goes off.
Arthur, it's a lovely death, but I'm not absolutely sure it doesn't go on perhaps a hair too long. I don't think we'll put it in tonight.
All right, darling. I just thought it was worth trying, that was all.
The first halberdier comes on, still muttering.
Oh, Mr. Gosport, are you ready for me yet?
No, in a minute. I'm going to see some girls first. Just wait there.
He motions him to a corner of the stage where the first halberdier sits, mouthing intermittently.
All right, Jack. Ready for the Winter's Tale?
All right, Johnny. Send the first lady on, will you?
Okay.
Okay, what's the lady's name, please?
Whispers off.
Oh.
Okay, Muriel Palmer.
And Muriel Palmer comes on, followed at a few yards interval by Tom. Jack, busy with his notebook, does not immediately look up.
There he is! That's my dad! Dad, my daughter, and you're my dad!
What text are you using, Miss...
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Gospel, but I know about this young lady. She's been annoying us all evening. How did you get out of that room?
A young man came and helped us and told all the girls to come on the stage separate, as Mr. Gospel was waiting for us.
God, all right. Well, now Are you going to go quietly, or shall I have to ring up the police?
The police? Ahead? I don't mind. I haven't done anything wrong. I just had a few words with my dad. Dad's all right. I recognize him from my mum's picture on the piano.
Even in this country, you can't arrest a girl for talking to her dad, you know.
Scare me, young man.
All right. Johnny, ring up the police station and ask them to send a man round. We're having trouble.
Do I understand this lady claims that I am her father?
Your name is Gosport, isn't it?
Arthur Gosport, yes.
Well, I'm your daughter, Muriel. You've never seen me because I was born after you left Mum. This is my husband, Tom. He's your son-in-law.
How do?
And I've brought someone else along that I thought you'd like to meet. Tom! Tom!
Hey, me?
Just a minute. You mentioned just now a character called Mum. Could you be more explicit, please? Where does this Mum person live?
Same old place. Number 21, Upper Brecon Road.
Opposite a puce rectangular building with a notice board outside saying, "Thy days are numbered."
That's right. The Baptist Chapel.
And is Mum's name Lawrence?
Flossie. Flossie, that's right.
Flossie. Oh, no, it can't be.
Oh, yes, it is, Dad.
Arthur, you can't mean...
Yes, oh, yes, it's true. Oh, I know it now. You've only got to look at her face to see it, the living image of a dreadful mother.
Really? Nice way to say.
Look, Mr. Gosport, as we've never seen this lady's dreadful mother, perhaps there's some other way we could test her story. When were you born?
January 15, 1920.
Great. Okay. And when did you last see Flossie?
Don't cross-examine me. I don't know. I can only tell you that I'm absolutely convinced of the truth of this girl's statement. This is my daughter, Mabel.
Muriel. Short.
My daughter, Muriel. Mew for short.
He sinks down onto the stool, his head in his hands. Edna loyally goes to his side to comfort him.
Why are you here and what do you want?
Want? I don't want anything. Just say hello. That's all. It seems silly being in the same town and for us not even to meet each other. Mum didn't want me to come, but I thought Dad'd be interested to see what I look like and to meet his son-in-law. Besides, I've got such a nice little surprise for you. Come on, Tom. I want to introduce you to your grandson.
Tom appears, wheeling a pram tenderly towards the group, who are too frozen with horror to move.
My grandson?
That's right, Dad. Come and look.
Very slowly, Arthur rises up, with Edna on one side and Jack on the other, gazes down on the pram. Muriel and Tom complete the group. There is a long pause.
It looks like... like a beerwurm tree.
No, darling. The terrible thing is, it looks awfully like you.
Don't say that, Edna.
Yes, he's the image of his grandpa, isn't he? The ickle-tickle wibbly-biddy-boo. Go on, Grandpa, tickle his little tummy.
I refuse to tickle his little tummy.
How old is he? Tom, how old is he?
5 months. You're Edna Selby, aren't you?
Yes.
I saw you in Shakespeare once in Birmingham. You were the Queen, weren't you, when Mr. Gosport was Hamlet?
I have played it, yes.
Well, then, in a sort of way, that makes you our little Ted's grandmother, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. Not in any sort of way, and please don't say it does. Arthur, how could you?
I am not responsible for Ted.
But you are responsible for this. For you.
I was a mere boy, a wild, hot-headed, irresponsible, passionate boy, a Romeo of 17.
And your Juliet was Flossie.
She was my landlady's daughter. I loved her for a time, with all my heart and mind. She loved me too in her way, but not enough. She never even came to the theatre to see me act. Of course, it had to end, and all such mad, youthful follies must.
It didn't have to end in this.
And I say unto you, the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children, even unto the 3rd and 4th generation. You know the line.
It seems to have got up to the 4th generation far too quickly. Oh, Arthur, it's not in my nature to reproach you for what is past and done, but I do think you've been terribly, terribly foolhardy. Please remove this.
Okay, if that's the way you feel.
Didn't they appreciate them then? Come along then, my icky wicky chicka boo. Ooh, come along then. Say ta-ta for now, Granddaddy.
Oh, God, Edna, God, what am I to do?
Once more, Edna takes his hand in silent but loyal sympathy. The Palmiers wheel their baby out. There is a pause, broken by the first halberdier, who, throughout the preceding scene, has been mouthing intermittently in the background, more or less oblivious of what has been going on.
Faith, we may put up our pipes and be gone.
Jack, what am I to do?
Well, Mr. Gosport, they haven't bothered you at all for 20 years, right? So I don't see any reason why they should do in the future.
Yes, but that child, that horrifying child.
Oh, well, no one needs to know about that. Ask your daughter, Mrs. Palmer, to keep the whole thing secret, and if I might venture to suggest it, send an occasional little present to them for the baby.
A nice little box of jujus flavored with prussic acid.
I don't think it's in the quite best taste to make that sort of joke, Edna. After all, this creature is my grandson. Oh, my God, my grandson.
Oh, never mind, my darling. These things can happen to any of us.
But why? When I'm playing Romeo at ballpark, why couldn't it have been... Well, I couldn't have turned up when I was playing Lear.
That's life, my darling.
Of course, we shall have to cancel the performance now.
Oh, look, Mr. Gosport, I really don't think you'll find it necessary to do that.
How can I play a boy of 17 with a grandson in the wings, mocking me with that repulsive leer of his every time I go on?
Because it won't be in the wings. First thing tomorrow morning, I shall go and see Mrs. Palmer's mother, and I'd better have her address again.
21 Upper Brecon Road.
Okay, thank you. And what is her name?
Flossie.
I know. I meant her surname.
Gospel, I suppose.
Gosport?
What an odd coincidence.
Mr. Gosport, did you marry Flossie?
Oh, yes, she made rather a point of it. I remember.
Arthur, you mean your daughter isn't illegitimate?
Oh, no, she's perfectly legitimate, I think.
Well, really. Of course, that puts an entirely different complexion on the whole thing. It's going to make me look very silly if that gets out.
It all happened such a long time ago, darling, and I really didn't see why it should bother you with the whole rather sordid story.
Mr. Gosport, when did you divorce your first wife?
Well, let me see now. I left her to take part in the revival of the passing of the third floor back at Barnes.
Yeah, I said, when did you divorce her? This is rather important. You did divorce her, didn't you?
Yes, of course I did, my dear fellow. I remember perfectly.
Did you divorce her, or did she divorce you?
Well, we divorced each other, my dear chap.
In law, that isn't quite possible, Mr. Gosport. Who was awarded the degree in a C, you or your wife?
Degree in a C? What's that?
Well, it's the decision awarded by the judge by a divorce action.
A judge? I don't remember a judge. I'm sure if there'd been a judge, I would have remembered. There was a solicitor, I know that, and a lot of documents to sign.
Mr. Gosport, one solicitor and a lot of documents do not make a divorce, you know.
My dear fellow, don't fuss. Everything was perfectly legal in order, I assure you.
Yeah, but you don't think it might have just been a deed of separation that you signed and not a divorce at all?
Of course it was a divorce. It must have been a divorce. The solicitor's name was Jenkins. He had a commissioner of oaths on his glass door, I remember.
Muriel and Tom wander on.
Hello, Dad. Just been having a look around the stage. Don't mind it, will you?
Mrs. Palmer, if I ask you a straight question, will you please give me a straight answer?
All right. Fire away.
Is your mother divorced?
Divorced? Of course not.
Thank you. That was what I'd already gathered.
Mind you, she's often thought of divorce, Dad, but somehow never got around to doing it. Not that she's got a good word to say for him, mind you. She says he was the laziest, pottiest, most selfish chap she's ever come across in all her life. He'll come to and sticky end. She used to say to me when I was a little girl, you mark my words. She used to say, if Dad doesn't end his days in jail, my name's not Flossie Gospel.
Your mother, Mrs. Palmer, is plainly a remarkable prophetess. Would you and your husband mind returning to number 21 Upper Beacon Road, as I have a rather important little matter to discuss with your dad, who will be getting in touch with you in due course.
Okay, well, ta-ta for now, Dad.
I will arrange for the 3 complimentary seats to be left in your name for Thursday matinee. Thanks a million, Dad. I am not your dad, you know. In law, old cock, in law.
Muriel and Tom go off. There is a pause after they have gone.
Darling, I must say it looks as if you've been very, very careless.
Darling, there must be some hideous mistake. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. Jack, you must fix this.
Mr. Gosport and Miss Selby, I'm afraid this is something that not even I can fix. You must face, both of you, a very unpleasant fact. You are bigamously married.
Miss Fishlock?
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
Here a moment, would you?
Miss Fishlock comes in, notebook and pencil at the ready.
Miss Fishlock, it appears my wife and I have committed bigamy. You better ring up the London office at once and inform Mr. Wilmot.
Yes, Mr. Gosport. What did you say you and your wife have committed?
Bigamy.
Miss Fishlock sways slightly, and it's supported by Jack. Then, clutching her pencil firmly, she bravely writes down the fatal word, or its shorthand equivalent.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
Silly word, isn't it? Sounds almost as if Arthur and I committed a serious crime.
I hate to alarm you, Miss Selby, but that is exactly what Mr. Gosport has committed.
You mean I have to pay a fine or something like that?
Miss Fishlock, do you happen to know the maximum penalty for bigamy?
Miss Fishlock nods, biting her quivering lower lip.
What is it, Miss Fishlock?
Imprisonment for life.
There is a stunned silence.
And does that apply to me too, Miss Fishlock?
No, Miss Selby, you haven't committed any crime. Only Mr. Gosport.
They wouldn't separate us.
I'm afraid they would, Miss Selby.
Oh no, they wouldn't. They couldn't. If Arthur has to go to prison, I shall go too.
I doubt if that is allowed, Miss Selby. Is it, Miss Fishlock?
No, Mr. Wakefield. I don't know of any prisons where convicts are allowed to take their wives with them.
Much for her. She bursts frankly into tears and runs into the wings.
Oh, Miss Fishlock, what an idiotic woman to get so hysterical.
Oh, my darling, I won't let them take you from me. I won't.
Darling, there's nothing at all to get so worked up about. I'll make a public apology, divorce Flossie properly, and then marry you again.
That would be such horrible publicity.
The Arts Council will fix that. Now, don't waste any more time. We've got to get to work.
His eye lights on the first halberdier, who, all this time, has been patiently sitting in the background waiting to be called for rehearsal.
You. I'll do your line now. Darling, do you mind taking up your position in the potion scene after you've drunk the potion?
While Arthur is placing Edna where he wants her for the scene, Jack goes up to the first halberdier.
My God, how much did you hear of all that?
Oh, that's all right, Mr. Wakefield. I'm not a tattletale. Wish me luck, Mr. Wakefield. This is my great chance.
All right, Mr. We're ready for you now. I'll give you your cue.
Thanks, Mr. Gosport.
Now, leave a 5-second pause. Come on, look down at the bed and see what you take to be a dead body. Now, I want you to get from your expression that you realize this girl whose wedding you have just been hired to play has taken her own life, presumably because she couldn't face the marriage with Paris, and that she has died for the love of another. Your face should express understanding of the undying conflict between spiritual love and this gross, mundane world.
Gracious.
Well, if you can't do it, just look sad. Then turn and say your line to your fellow musicians, who we presume will be off stage by then. Understand?
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
All right. Go off. Jack, music.
The first halberdier runs off.
And a trope.
The heavens do lower upon us for some ill. Move them no more by crossing thy higher will.
After the correct time interval, the first halberdier comes on, acting hard. He gazes down at Edna and contrives to look very sad, sighing deeply and shaking his head. Then he turns slowly and faces George Chudley, who has come on silently behind him.
Faith.
Faith, put our pipes.
Be gone.
What? Oh, Mr. You've come back.
I just felt I couldn't desert you both in the hour of your great affliction.
Our great affliction?
Oh my God, how did you hear?
I was in the feathers when a chap in the company come in and told us how Mr. and Mrs. Gosport were likely to get a life sentence for bigamy.
Oh God, the news must be half over Brackley by now.
He runs off.
Don't worry, Jack. The company, I know, will stand by us. Mr. Chudley, it was naughty of you to leave us so suddenly, but I think I know what was the matter. We all of us suffer from an occasional crisis de nerves.
Crisis the what?
Nerves, Mr. Chudley, nerves. Now come with me and I'll give you a nice strong cup of tea.
They go off together. Arthur, during this, has been staring, chin in hand, fixedly at the set. The first halberdier has been staring fixedly and despairingly at him.
Mr. Gosport?
Yes?
Do you want me anymore?
What? No, thank you.
You couldn't let me have another line to say sometime, could you?
I'll keep you in mind.
Thanks, Mr. Gosport.
Too late, too late. Out of the feathers and into the green horse now. They've all heard it.
Jack warily subsides on the stool. The first halberdier approaches him timidly.
Mr. Wakefield?
Yes?
Do you think I should give up the theatre?
Why ask me?
Well, you know so much about life.
What has life got to do with the theatre?
It's an awful shame about that line. It came at such an important time, with Miss Selby and Dame Mordaunt, and after a pause and with a chance for face acting, the London critics might have noticed me.
Oh, no, I'd rather doubt that. The potion scene comes very soon after the interval.
Well, cheery bye.
Cheery bye.
The first halberdier goes out sadly.
Mr. Wakefield!
Yes, Johnny?
The lady in your dressing room says to tell you time is getting on and you're not to forget your promise.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Enter Dame Maud.
What is this terrible news?
Oh, Dame Maud, have you been to the Feathers?
I just looked in for a little refreshment and heard the abominable slander. Jack, have some pity on an old lady and tell me it isn't true.
I'm afraid it is true, Dame Maud.
Oh, I see. Well, of course, I suppose you know who is at the bottom of it all, don't you?
No? Who?
The old Vic.
I don't think so, Dame Maud.
Why, dear Jack, are you quite blind? It's as clear as daylight to me. They stick at nothing, that lot. Absolutely nothing. I'm going to ring them up this moment and tell them exactly what I think of them.
No, Dame Maud, you mustn't. You really mustn't.
Oh, and Sadler's Wells.
Dame Maud goes off, followed by Jack. The stage is empty a moment, and then a uniformed policeman walks on from the wings with firm, measured tread. He looks around him. Johnny, still busy on the balcony, comes on.
Who's in charge here, please?
Mr. Wakefield, he'll be back in a minute.
After shaking the balcony once more, Johnny goes off. Jack comes on and stopped dead at sight of the policeman.
Oh, God.
You, Mr. Wakefield?
That's right, yes. Yes, I'm Mr. Wakefield, officer. That's quite right.
I understand you want assistance.
Assistance?
One of your chaps rang up to say you were having bother at this theatre.
Oh, that. Oh, yes, of course. I'd forgotten. Oh, well. Just fancy you're taking all that trouble to come round here. Oh, I do think that's good of you, officer. Oh, but as a matter of fact, it was all a mistake. An utter misunderstanding.
You're not having any bother?
Oh, no. No bother in the world. Not a trace of bother. Everything's quite perfect.
Then I don't know what you're doing wasting our time.
Oh, my dear old chap, I can't tell you how sorry I am about that. It is awful to think of you walking all that way from the police station on a wild goose chase. Oh, look. Sit down, my dear fellow. Make yourself comfortable, and I'll get you a nice drink, a nice large drink. What would you like? Whiskey?
The policeman nods.
Yes, I thought you would. Now just stay there. Don't move, will you? There are all sorts of dangerous contraptions in a theatre, and you might hurt yourself, and that'll be dreadful. Just sit there, relax, and I'll dash and get an enormous zonk of whiskey.
He goes off, still burbling. The policeman, sitting patiently on the stool, is evidently rather surprised at the extreme affability of his reception. There's a pause. Then Dame Maud crosses the stage, another glass of Guinness clutched in her hand. She does not at first see the policeman. When she does, she utters one single hoarse and strangled scream and sinks slowly to the floor in a dead faint. The policeman startled as Jack comes back with a whiskey.
Yeah, there's an old lady having a fit.
What? Oh, it's Dame Maud. Oh, Lord. I suppose she gave you... she goes off at the slightest thing, you know. Johnny, come here, quick. Give me a hand with Dame Maud.
So queer, is she?
Yeah, just one of her dizzy spells.
I'd take a lend a hand. I knows my first aid.
Oh, no, please don't bother. You really mustn't trouble yourself, officer. It's nothing at all. She's always doing this. She's over 100, you know. Poor old thing. Just sit down and be comfortable and pay no attention at all.
Oh, get me a drink, for God's sake.
Jack and Johnny carry her into the wings. The policeman settles down once more on his stool. There is another pause, and Edna comes on quickly.
Jack, are we doing the farewell?
She sees the policeman and stands quite motionless, looking at him as he rises politely. Then very slowly she walks towards him, sadly, resigned, and melodiously.
Oh, well, there is no purpose to be served, I suppose. kicking against the pricks.
Beg pardon, Mum.
Constable, I only want to say one thing. In 15 years, my husband and I have never spent a single night.
Is that so, ma'am? Just fancy.
Not one. If we were separated, I think we would die.
Would you indeed, Mum?
I want you to know that nothing can keep us apart. Nothing and no one, not even you, Constable, can come between us now. If you take him, you must take me too.
I see, ma'am. I'll bear that in mind.
Jack comes back and gasps as he sees Edna with the policeman.
Oh, Miss Selby, Dame Maud has been taken a bit faint. She's calling for you urgently.
Oh, what can the matter be now? I've been telling the constable.
Oh, isn't it nice of the constable to come dashing round just because we heard we were having a little trouble in the theatre, especially when we're not having any trouble at all, are we?
Oh, I see. Constable, dear Constable, perhaps you'd better forget what I just said now.
I'll try to, ma'am, I'm sure.
Just a little secret between the two of us, eh? What a beautiful line of the neck the constable has, hasn't he, Jack?
Oh, beautiful.
Here, I say.
Goodbye, Constable, and thank you for your great, great kindness to us all. I shall never forget it.
That was Edna Selby, wasn't it?
Yes, officer. You mustn't, pay too much attention to anything she might have to have said to you earlier. She's suffering from the most terrible first night nerves.
Oh, is that the way it takes them?
Oh, nearly always. Now, if you've quite finished your drink, I better escort you out.
Thanks, I can find my own way out.
Oh, well, it's rather complicated, and I wouldn't like you to be bothered by any of the actors, so...
Are they all suffering from first night nerves, then?
Nearly all of them. Come along, officer. I'll just clear a way for you.
He and the policeman move to the wings. Jack goes out. The policeman goes back for his helmet, which, in his confusion, he has left by the stall. Arthur comes in.
Well, really, Inspector, this is too much. I do think you might have waited till after the performance.
Well, Mr. Gosport, sir, I've got my work to do, you see.
But, my dear Inspector, you mustn't listen to a word my wife says. I can assure you we're divorced. There's no doubt about it at all.
That's so, sir. I'd no idea.
And anyway, we haven't spoken a single word to each other since the general strike.
Oh, that's too bad, sir. Your wife give me to understand quite different.
Of course she would, my dear fellow. She's out for publicity, I suppose. But I tell you something else, my dear chap. I'm not at all sure that my child's really mine.
Good gracious.
Jack comes back in a hurry. Arthur goes up to the balcony.
My God, Mr. Gosport, Miss Selby's ready for the farewell. Officer, come this way, please. Please come this way.
Drags the policeman away from Arthur in a low voice.
Oh, you mustn't pay any attention to him either, least of all to him.
First night nerves too.
Oh, far more worse than that. He's completely and utterly off his rocker. It's terribly, terribly sad.
Oh, Lord love, but he can still act.
Oh, yes, he can still act. That's all he can do. Come along, officer, please.
He gets him off the stage. Johnny has come onto the balcony and is attaching a rope ladder to it. Arthur and Edna appear on the balcony. Johnny goes off, shaking his head.
Give me the lighting for the farewell, please.
The light comes down to give a rosy dawn effect.
All right. Let me be ta'en out, let me be put to death. I am content, so thou wilt have it so. I say, yon grey is not the morning's eye, 'tis but the pale reflect of Cynthia's brow. Nor that is not the lark, whose notes do beat the vaulty heavens so high above our heads. I have more care to say that I will go. Come, death, and welcome. Juliet wills it so. Howls it to my soul. Let's talk. It is not day.
It is. High heads be gone away. It is the lark that sings so out of tune, straining harsh discords and unpleasing sharps. Some say the lark makes sweet division. This doth not so, for she divideth us. Some say the lark and the loath toad change eyes. Oh, now I would they had changed voices too, since arm from arm that voice doth us affray. Hunting be hence with hunts up to the day, of now be gone, more light and light it grows.
More light, more dark and dark our woes.
Miss Fishlock suddenly flies on from the wings, and her countenance, transported with joy, is suffused with the rosy gleams of the sun now rising on Verona.
Mr. Gosport! Miss Selby! I know you'll forgive me for interrupting you. I have important news.
Yes, Miss Fishlock.
I got through to Mr. Wilmot and gave him your message. He was most calm, most kind, most helpful, and most reassuring. He's coming down to Brackley tomorrow morning by an early morning train in person.
Oh, how very good of him.
What's more, he gave me a message to pass on to you both. He says you're on no account to worry yourselves about this matter. No. He says he happens to know there can be no danger whatever of what we feared.
I knew it!
He says it'll probably be necessary for Miss Selby to sign a document to say at the time she married you, Mr. Gosport, she was aware that you were already married. That, of course, would have the effect of making your second marriage null and void.
Oh, that's splendid.
There can therefore be no question of your having committed an offence in law. Oh, Mr. Gosport, he was so wonderfully brave, he went on to say that there should never be any difficulty in you getting a divorce from this other person. Then afterwards, should you and Miss Selby still wish it, you could get married again. Only no publicity, of course. And that, of course, would settle the entire problem once and for all.
How brilliant he is, isn't he, Arthur? I really don't know why anybody ever works for another management.
Thank you, Miss Fishlock. You've done extremely well. I'm very grateful.
I knew you'd both be pleased. Oh, Mr. Gosport, I'm so glad, I really am. I do congratulate you, and you too, Miss Selby.
Thank you, Miss Fishlock.
Miss Fishlock goes off, again in tears, but this time of joy.
Arthur, don't you think you ought to say a few words to the company? I know they'll be overjoyed at the news.
Oh, very well. Jack, the ensemble company. Assemble the company, will you?
Jack appears.
They're mostly in the front already, Mr. Gosport. Remain in your seats down there. Everyone else on, please. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the subject of bigamy, the danger point is past. I'm sure you will be delighted to hear that Mr. Wilmot has discovered a way by which my marriage to Miss Selby can be rendered entirely illegal.
There is a little flutter of hand clapping from the wings.
Thank you very much. Nor would it be right to let this occasion pass without extending, on your behalf, on Miss Selby's and on mine, our most grateful thanks to Mr. Wilmot, without whose cooperation and ingenuity and savoir-faire this happy result would barely have been possible. And also to Miss Fishlock, who, as usual, has to do most of the donkey work and has done it always far better than anyone would have accepted. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, to yourselves, for the great loyalty you have shown in this moment of crisis to my wife, that is to say, Miss Selby and myself, 1,000 thanks. And one other thing, I am not a difficult man in the theatre, as you know, but I would like to have it perfectly clear that I consider a very great deal of time has been wasted during this break for tea. Please see that it doesn't occur again. And now back to work.
Arthur goes
just a moment, everyone. I also have an announcement to make. I know you'll be overjoyed to hear that Miss Fishlock, with characteristic ingenuity, has at last successfully completed the national insurance forms for the entire company.
Bravo!
Enter Arthur.
Let's just finish the climb down, my dear.
Yes.
Arthur climbs onto ladder.
Since arm from arm that voice doth us affray, hunting thee hence with hunts up to the day. Oh, now be gone, more light and light it grows.
More light and light, more dark and dark our woes.
Then, window, let day in and let life out.
Farewell, farewell, one kiss and I'll descend.
He begins to climb down.
Art thou gone so? Oh, Arthur, I've just thought of something quite dreadful.
What?
Little Basil.
Little Basil? Oh, Miss Fishlock.
Miss Fishlock flies on again.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
Ring up Mr. Wilmot immediately and inform him that he appears to have made little Basil into a little bastard.
Yes, Mr. Gosport.
She goes off.
And what's more, there's far too much light on this scene. Don't you agree, dear?
Yes, dear, I do, especially on the balcony.
Jack!
Jack comes on.
There's too much from here and too much from there. Now, is everyone ready?
You can't get the lights much lower than this, Mr. Gosport. They'll go out altogether.
Nonsense, my dear fellow.
The tabs draw, revealing the Verona scene with the two halberdiers, George Chudley and Ingram, grouped.
Now, are we all here? I want to do the duel.
Dame Maud comes onto the balcony.
As you've stopped, I thought I wouldn't mind if I gave you another teeny little hint.
Not just now, Auntie Maud, do you mind? Perhaps tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be far too late.
There's still too much on the balcony, Jack.
Bring it down more, Will. I'll never stand it, Miss Selby.
I'm sure it will. The lights never let us down.
Now, Tybalt, take the villain back again. That late, and thou gavest me, for Mercutio's soul is but a little way above our heads. Staying for thine to keep him company, either thou or I must both go with him.
Thou wretched boy, that didst constort him here, shalt with him hence.
This shall determine that.
What? Art thou drawn amongst these heartless hinds? Turn thee, look upon thy death.
Jack, time's up.
What? Clear the stage, will you, darling? We're extremely busy.
No, I won't. No, I won't. Have you told them yet?
Told them what? Oh, that. No, I haven't. Look, darling, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for me, that's all. I can't leave these two now. I realise that. How can I let them go behind the Iron Curtain without one sane man to look after them?
Sane? You're not sane. You're as mad as they are. This madhouse has infected you too.
Madhouse? This isn't a madhouse. It's just an ordinary dress rehearsal, that's all. Now, clear the stage, darling, will you?
Jack, dear, there's still too much light on this balcony.
If you take the light down more than this, Miss Selby, they will fuse.
Let them fuse.
Again, please. That's too quick.
It's no good, Jack. I'm leaving you. You'll never get out of this. It's bedlam, and you're in it for life. Goodbye, Jack. Goodbye.
She runs off the stage.
Joyce!
Oh, now that girl has talent. Who is she, Arthur? Who is that girl?
I don't know, Auntie Maud. Get her name, will you, Jack?
I've got her name, Mr. Gosport. It's Joyce Langland. She was my fiancée.
Good. We'll try for the Winter's Tale tomorrow. Now this duel is getting very sloppy. Let's go back.
There's still too much light, Jack.
Yes, Miss Selby. Take it down more, Will. And try those thunder and lightning cues 2, 3, and 4.
The lights suddenly go out.
My God, they're fused.
Summer lightning is now playing fitfully on the scene.
House lights, house lights.
The house lights go up. Mrs. Burton rushes on. Take those lights out. It's 7:30. There's an audience in front. Look. He points. A row of startled faces gaze at the now visible audience, and then they scatter in panic to the wings. The house lights go out. There is a moment's blackout, disturbed by summer lightning and a roll of thunder. Then the stage lights come on again, revealing an empty stage. Arthur comes on slowly, carrying his pot.
Mr. Gosport, the audience is in front.
He beckons him up to the wings. Only other faces and other beckoning figures appear, but Arthur is oblivious. He walks slowly round the pot, then, dissatisfied with its appearance, picks it up once more and walks slowly out to the strains of the overture. The curtain falls.